Hi, this is PGSMaths, and in this video we're going to be looking at gathering and collecting data. Now when you're gathering data, the first thing you need is a question. That seems to be a bit of a problem sometimes though with the questions that we see. How many books do you read? And the answer, yes. So there's a few simple rules to creating a good question for a questionnaire. Number 1, make sure your question makes sense. So if I want to find out what people's favourite colours are, there's no point asking them how many books they read. Also, do make sure that any responses that are given make sense as well. Yes is not a good answer to this question. Always give a time frame if an action's involved. So the question would sound much better if you said, how many books do you read a day? Because now there's a time frame. Without that time frame, it could be in a week, in a month, in a year. So make sure that you're specific with the time frame that you're thinking of. And the final point is to give options. Now, it might be easier for us just to put a little line and say, please fill in your answer. But this is a little bit of a problem for mathematicians, because the important side for us is that we want to look at the data, and if people write it in, what we end up with is a big mess. To prove my point, we're going to look at this question: how many pets do you have? Now, if I don't give them any options to choose from, people could tell me anything. And what we end up with is just list after list after list after list. We just end up with endless numbers, which is really hard for us to try and analyse. Looking at that, it's much harder to try and find out which one's the most popular, what number's in the middle. We could eventually count them all and find out how many people there are. But it's very difficult for us to organise. So what we do is come up with option boxes. Now when you create your option boxes, it's always a good idea to produce at least 3 boxes. Now because I've seen the kind of answers that I was going to take for this data, I've made sure that I've got enough boxes to go up to 6. It's also a good idea to make sure there's no overlap. So if we had 2 boxes that had the number 1 in, which one would we pick? Now this is all good and well for a questionnaire that you hand someone and they just tick the relevant box. It makes sense for a user, so therefore it's a brilliant question. In a GCSE exam, this kind of question, if you created it, would be worth 2 marks. But what's a good, clear way to represent all our data? Well, that's where our tally table or frequency table comes in. Whenever you design a tally table, you want to have 3 columns. The first one is for your data, so in this case, it's going to be the number of pets. In this column, you want to list all of the possible options. Generally doing it in order makes things easier for you. So we'll have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 plus. Now I only put 6 plus just in case there were answers outside the range that I predicted. Now your middle column is the fun one, the tally. This is the one you want to make as big as possible, because the more data you get, the bigger this section needs to be. And the final section, which is the bit most people seem to forget, is the frequency. Now frequency is just a number. It'll be the number of tally marks you end up with in the middle column. So let's find some data to put into this. 1. Each time someone says a number, we can put a single tally mark into the relevant row. Another 1. So another tally mark goes into number 1. And this continues for all the data, one at a time. Now it would take me for a really long time, about to say forever. It's not forever. It just takes a really long time to go through all that data I showed you on the first slide. So if we just speed this up a little bit and look at all those potential values we've got in here, 1, 2, 3, 4 twos, etc. It would be really dangerous to try and just tally 4 there and cross them off. So it's a good idea that as you go through a list, you cross off the ones that you've tallied. Next one will be 5. Next one will be 4, etc. Now do remember that once you've passed every 4th mark, your 5th mark is drawn through the middle like this. This way, when you're counting up lots of data, you can just count the blocks and know that each one of these equals 5. This, let's say in Blue Peter, is one I made earlier. That's a lot of tally marks. All that's required after you've counted up all your data, put it into tallies, is to count out how many marks you have and write that in the frequency section. What's the advantage of this? Well, we can instantly see how many people have 0 pets, how many people have 1, how many people have 2, etc. So it's a much clearer way of representing lots of data. Here's today's challenge of the day. How long do you spend doing homework every day? 1 to 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours, 3 to 4 hours, 4+ hours. What is wrong with this question? Now there's more than one thing, so see how many problems you can find. If you have any questions with this, or anything else that we've shown in other videos, please send me a message, and remember to subscribe to us at PGSMaths. We're on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube, so whichever media you prefer.